This ZeroNow program is brought to you with the support of our founding partners.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
All right, I am Michael Campanella. I'm a student at NYU and a student correspondent for ZeroNow. I'm here with Melissa Agnes, who is the CEO of the Crisis Ready Institute, and we are going to talk a little bit about her role in crisis management. We're going to talk about her public speaking, and she's a passionate expert in the field, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say. So, Melissa, let's start with why you got involved in public safety, why this is an important mission for you, and why this is something that you are passionate about and have wanted to do.
I think that, so why I got involved and how I got involved, I like the why behind why I got involved versus the how. Most people ask about the how. The thing that impassions me about the work that I do, other than the challenge of it, is the fact that I'm frustrated with the state of the world. I'm frustrated with a lot of aspects of my industry in crisis management and crisis preparedness. And I feel that it does a massive disservice to individuals like you and society at large. And so I'm not somebody who likes to complain without driving or at least bringing some kind of a solution. So when I find myself really fired up and frustrated, that has been what has fueled me over the last decade plus in this career.
Right. And so that frustration, has that come from the political side where it's very hard to get anything done through Congress? Has that come through sort of just this stalemate in the culture where we have sort of just accepted these mass shootings and gun violence? Where does that frustration stem from?
I think it's a couple things. I think one is complacency. So complacency bothers me, to your point on being complacent and kind of just accepting things that we shouldn't be accepting. So, for example, gun violence, the way that it has excelled and increased over the course of the last several years, especially in this country. And moreover, it's the fact that there's a lack of awareness. So I firmly believe that if more people knew, if more people were equipped with the skill set, the mindset, the skill set, and the capability to be crisis ready, to be what I call crisis ready, then we would live in a kinder, safer, more balanced world. And while there are certainly some who may be aware of it and discard of it, not want to for whatever reason, there are far more organizations, leaders, professionals, humans who just don't have the information privy to them. So crisis readiness up until now has never been taught. It's a skill set. Crisis leadership is a skill set that isn't taught in school, right? So we're not equipping our society, our students, our professionals, our leaders with a very important, essential skill set that we saw at the start of COVID was lacking. Right, so that's really where I suppose my frustration lies, and also where I see the opportunity. If every professional, if every person was empowered with the right mindset, skill set, capability to lead through crisis, to lead through adversity, to lead through challenge, and to preempt it on the front end, then again, I believe that we live in a kinder, safer, more balanced world, more resilient world, and that's my driving factor.
Right. So can you tell me a little bit about the Crisis Ready model, what it entails, what it looks like, some of the information or the key points that are inside of it?
Yeah, so the whole premise of Crisis Ready is that crisis readiness is cultural. That my industry, when you mentioned earlier, challenging status quo or elevating status quo, that's what we're doing. And my industry, crisis management industry of status quo, the status quo is to have a crisis management plan. Right, you have this document, you have this book that details out how to manage a crisis. That book gets filed away somewhere. You check off, some executive's to-do list item, and then come crisis, for whatever reason, there's this false sense of solace of, in the event of a crisis, we're just going to follow this book. This manual is going to guide us. I've been saying this for decades, that that's not enough, that doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually serve, especially because that book is typically written in a very siloed, very generic fashion. So the organization at large does not know of its existence, nor do they know of their roles and responsibilities and what they can expect and what's expected of them in the event of a fast-moving crisis. So the whole premise of Crisis Ready is that it's cultural. That yes, planning is absolutely essential, but essentially what it is it's a mindset, it's a skill set, it's capability that serves the mindset and skill set. So what we do at the Institute is we help organizations embed what I'd call a crisis-ready culture. So we're helping form the mindset, helping create awareness around the mindset. We're helping to instill and hone, develop the right skills cross-organizationally, from communications to legal to ops to the C-suite to the board, honing those skill sets, developing and honing the skill sets of how do you respond to controversy, to adversity, to challenge, to business disruption in real time. How do you hone that skill set? And then, of course, having the capability, so the functionality, the governance structure, the processes, the protocols that enable those skill sets to work cohesively, seamlessly as a unit throughout the organization. Does that make sense?
So when you,
is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you say culturally, it's about employees, employers, everybody, students, teachers, everybody sort of working together and binding together and saying, yes, this is a problem. There are real threats out there, and we need to be ready as a culture and as a group and as a sort of like a microcosm to react to this, and not even react, but I would say in a proactive way.
Yes. Even if proactive is what I call being strategically reactive. So sometimes it's proactive where you're getting out ahead right away and you're calming something down, or you're managing expectations and you're out there in the forefront. Other times, because you're crisis ready to say, you know what, right now this is what's happening, but we're going to continue to monitor. And if this, and this gets triggered, that's when we're going to come in and have more of a proactive response. So the difference between that being kind of strategically reactive versus just being reactive, when you're not crisis ready, when you aren't empowered with this mindset, skill set, capability, you are simply putting yourself and your team in a position to be reactive to. So you're being hit with something and you're reacting to it. You're being hit with something, you're reacting to it. Like at the start of COVID, which is the majority of people, were just reactive to it. And then therefore they feel overwhelmed. They feel things are spiraling out of control. You never really get ahead. You never really get ahead of the situation and start to own the narrative of your own story, of your own crisis. When you are crisis ready, when you equip your entire organization, your entire team with this skill set, now you're in a position to be strategically reactive or strategically proactive so that you're not just reacting.
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting nuance to me, because I think a lot of people sort of look at it in this binary of I could either be proactive and nip the problem in the bud before it starts, or I could just react as fast as I possibly can. But this idea of being strategically reactive or strategically proactive, I think adds some deeper layers to what is a very black and white binary. It makes it so, like you said, prevention may not really be possible with these massive health crises, but what is possible is being strategically reactive and having the tools and knowledge to equip ourselves to respond in the best way. So I think that's really important.
Even if for nothing else than the alleviation of undue stress. Even if it's just for that reason, that is a very, very significant and powerful gift that you can give yourself and your team.
So you said that you've worked with a lot of different organizations. What are some common threads that you have seen, if any, regardless of what the organization or company is? Are there any unifying factors that you can pinpoint that everybody across the board needs to hear and needs to work on?
Absolutely. There's the core fundamentals. So things like understanding what an issue versus a crisis is for your organization, because a crisis for one organization does not necessarily mean it's going to be a crisis for another. So understanding what an issue is versus what a crisis is, how that relates to your business, to your operations, to your trust levels with your stakeholders, and defining the thresholds that take an issue to a crisis or a crisis back down to issue level, which is we always want to de-escalate. So that's one. Understanding the power of emotion and how that comes into play, both your emotion, your team's emotions, and your stakeholders' emotions in times of crisis. And one of the crisis-ready rules is that you can never beat emotion with logic. Can't beat emotion with logic because we're human beings and we are emotional beings, whether we like to believe that or admit that or not. For the logical people of who are more left-brained, but we are we're emotional beings as human beings, which means that when emotion comes into play, it instinctively, naturally, organically clouds judgment. That's one of the things that emotion does, especially in highly critical moments. And so understanding as a leader, when I talk about these things aren't taught in school yet, they're starting to be, but those leadership skill sets, the crisis-ready leadership skill sets, is a big part of that is understanding the power of emotion, the play of emotion, and then how do you communicate, how do you respond and lead through crisis when when logic is clouded by emotion and you need to speak to the logic to guide through crisis, right? To get people to safety or whatever the case is. How do you do that? And that's that's a whole, we go through coaching programs with people, with professionals and leaders to help them learn how to do this. But that is something unanimously across the board when you're dealing with crisis ready, so issue versus crisis, just to name two things, and defining that for your organization. And the second thing, really understanding the power of emotion and how to lead through crisis in highly emotional situations.
Right, yeah, because what I think is so common, with public safety and with crisis management and with anything else, is the solutions that are often presented seem to not dovetail properly with the human condition. And it sounds like that what you're talking about is saying we're not going to be able to change the anthropological makeup of humans, so we have to figure out a way to work with it and to understand it and to use it if we want to solve this crisis.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not about changing our making. It's about understanding it so that we can lead through it.
Right, yeah. So I think that is a really great approach.
And it's a skill set, just one more thing, it's a skill set that even those who are masterful in it are continuously learning, right? Because the human beings are so dynamic and the complexities of our world are increasingly dynamic. So it's a skill set that is ever kind of evolutionary. It's always evolving. It's something that we can always strengthen within ourselves as leaders.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think that you have a great mission, and I love everything that we've spoken about.
Well, I'd love to ask you a question.
Yes, please do.
What is it about this mission, the ZeroNow mission, and the work that you're doing, what's your why behind this?
Well, I was introduced to the organization by a friend, and I was researching it, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And for me, I think what spoke to me was sort of what we talked about in the beginning, that I feel uncomfortable waiting for some massive bureaucracy to solve this problem. And I think one of the beauties of living in America is that we have this opportunity to make a difference ourselves. So when I heard of the mission of ZeroNow, I found that it was a startup that decided to take matters into its own hands and to make a difference. And that was really inspiring to me, because I think that if we're going to make change in this problem, which is so important. I have a younger sister. I'm a college student myself. I hope to have kids one day. This is a problem that isn't going away. So if there's an organization or if there are people who are dedicated to solving this problem, that's definitely something that I would want to be a part of.
Great answer. I'm lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.